Newcastle United versus West Ham, a huge game, huge game. Let's be honest, every game now is huge because of the situation we're in. There isn't many games left for us this season now to kind of write many off. You know, we can't do that. Newcastle, it's going to be very tough. We know that. We're actually into now the dreaded February, aren't we? The month that we've looked at these fixtures thinking this is going to be a tough month. The fixtures are Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Tottenham away. Now, I'd actually go as far as saying that I actually think Newcastle's probably the tougher out of the three. Not so much on paper, but certainly for this season. In terms of form, you look at Newcastle. First, let's talk about Newcastle. I mean, really impressive football club. They just seem to be going in the right direction in every department. Financially, obviously, very, very powerful now. We know that. But what I like about them, they haven't really spent much money. People seem to have this thought process at the moment that Newcastle are where they are because of the money. That just isn't true. They're there because they've been very, very clever with their managerial appointments, clever with their player recruitment. I mean, they're really good. Really, I'm really impressed with them. And a club I actually do admire. I do like Newcastle, and it's you can only look on and think, wow, they're doing it right. It also reminds me, it reminds me of West Ham. It reminds me of when we had the season where David Moyes came in for a second time, kept us up. And then the second season, we sort of went on this run and finished sixth. You know, it's almost like this wasn't planned. Newcastle weren't anticipating this kind of level of success at the moment, you know, in terms of where they are. You know, they've got a cup final now they've got coming up. They've got, they're challenging for Champions League. And you know what? You'd be surprised they didn't get top four now. I actually think they're looking that good. They really are good. So it just highlights how difficult this game is going to be. West Ham have to really be at it. And it's one that I'm not overly confident. I'm not going into it confident. I don't think there's many West Ham fans really that will be going into this very confident. But there is a little bit of optimism, isn't there? We can't deny it. Things are starting to feel a little bit better. We've seen now 2 back-to-back victories, 2 clean sheets, 2-0 victories. We've got Bowen back in the goals, Antonio looking hungry again. Some decent performances. Even, dare I say it, Souček looking pretty good. So it's kind of, you get the feeling there's things starting maybe to turn, maybe. But let's be frank, this is the game to show that now. Because playing, no disrespect to Everton, a team that are really struggling at that period as well under Frank Lampard, at home, you'd expect us to win. Derby County, yes, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to knock these results, by the way, because they're the games that are given to you and we've done well. But this is the test now. Newcastle is a really big test. That is a game that West Ham must perform very, very well in to get anything from. I would be more than happy with a draw. I would bite your hand off now for 0-0. But there is there's things leaning towards our favour in this game a little bit in terms of the injury front. Let's talk about Newcastle first of all. So Guimaraes, Bruno Guimaraes, their midfielder, and I've got to say, what a player! I mean, incredible talent. I mean, he actually looks good enough to be in any team, doesn't he? At the moment, very, very good player. I feel like he's the glue. He's what makes everything tick for them at the moment. A very, very key, important player. Now, he is out. He is ruled out with suspension. He was sent off in the week in their cup game. So he is unavailable. That is a massive, massive lift for West Ham. Huge. You'd now like to think that we've got enough in our midfield to cope quite well. And then you've got Isaac, their striker. 50-50, not quite sure what's going on with him because it looks like he's got a concussion. Eddie Howe kind of alluded to the fact it looked like he had a concussion. If he's had a concussion, he will not be playing. That's what I've been told. And that's what I'm looking at. So that looks as though, fingers crossed, not wanting someone to have a concussion, but in terms of West Ham, if he's got the concussion, he will be out, which will be another big lift for West Ham. That's 2 big players, them out. Don't get me wrong, they've got a very strong side, very, very good. I really like what Eddie Howe's doing there. Whatever team they put out, it's going to be a tough game for West Ham. We know that. They've got plenty of pace, something that we will really struggle to deal with. But then there's also the positive news on West Ham. The positive news. Danny Ings looks like he's back in the squad. He looks like he's going to be available for David Moyes. Now, that is a huge, huge lift for West Ham. Something a little bit unexpected. I wasn't expecting to be back so soon. Sometimes concerning. You do think West Ham, are we just kind of rushing him through? Is it going to break down? Don't know. At the moment, I don't really care. I just want him. I want him out there. I want him playing. I want to see a bit of a lift. I think that will give everyone a bit of a boost for the game at St James's Park. It's on live on Sky as well, which is going to be an interesting one. I don't know. I don't want to go into it with feeling like arrogant and feeling we're going to get something from it. let's be honest, on the face of this is a game we probably would lose. I don't think many are anticipating West Ham to get much out of this. But I do think on the back of the results, and as well, we need to bear in mind Newcastle played midweek and they're in the final of the League Cup. History kind of shows that teams that get to finals and get these sort of things to celebrate on the side, and David Moyes alluded to it in his press conference and saying, I hope they've had a few too many Newcastle brown hours, because you kind of do hope that they have been slightly distracted, just ever so slightly, that they might be thinking, well, we've got a final coming up now. We're quite excited about that. They've been celebrating with their families and friends and things, that they might have just ever so slightly taken their eye off the ball in terms of West Ham. And maybe as well, they're just looking at the surface of it and going, well, West Ham, we should be beating them. And hopefully they're going to underestimate West Ham a little bit, and West Ham will show up and put in the performance that we need. It's going to be a difficult game. Whatever way you want to dress it up, it's going to be very tough. So the interesting news is Danny Ings looks like he's going to be back in. Kurt Zouma is out. Cornet is out, which is obviously a blow. That is a big blow for West Ham. Oh, and Scamacca, he will not be in the squad. So, but we kind of knew that. We knew the Zouma thing. I think the problem I'm worried about with Newcastle is the pace. That is the only thing that really worries me. I'm not sure how we're going to set up now in the back because of the Zouma loss. I'm not entirely convinced. I would probably say that Ben Johnson might be the ideal person to slot there. That would be my general consumption. I mean, I've got to say, we were talking about this in a previous video, and I don't want to bloody go on about it again, but this is my point about when I said about the January being a mess. Because already, we're in the first game and already going, who are we going to play? Who are we going to play at centre-back? We've got Tiro Kira, and I imagine that he might be the one that's selected, but I worry about him. I do worry. He does seem to be prone to a mistake. However, there is, as I say, there's things to be optimistic about. West Ham are playing well. We got a result there last season at St James's Park, so hopefully the memories there are fresh in terms of thinking, well, we've done this before, we can go and do it again. I'm going to predict a draw. I'm going to go with a draw. I've got a feeling it's going to be 1-1, and which I would be absolutely thrilled with. If West Ham can go away and not lose this match, it will give us a massive lift ahead of Chelsea, who are vulnerable at the moment, looking shaky. They're playing tonight. I'll be very interested to see how they get on, because this is going to give us a little bit of a taste. We actually could do with Fulham doing us a favour, give them another kick in, because I'll tell you what, get them to West Ham. If we can get a result against Newcastle and then we go into a London derby against Chelsea at London Stadium, you'd fancy us. You really would. You'd think West Ham could really do this. And let's be honest, if we can get a result against Newcastle and then against Chelsea, you'd really start looking up the table again. I really would. And this is a really important game for West Ham. But as I say, I'm not going into it brimming with confidence. I do know that what we're walking into is a very, 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 very tough game. But there you have it. You never know. The team news is good on both fronts for West Ham. This is a good opportunity. David Moyes, the pressure is on. We're talking about David Moyes. The ex-WHU employee has provided a little bit of an update on that, which is quite interesting. And he said that the time is now. This is what the board are saying. The time is now for David. So although they are believing that things are turning, they do want him to succeed. They do stand by the manager, but the time is now. There is no more room for error. Now, that might be a little bit harsh on David Moyes, because you think, well, okay, but you've got Newcastle away here. That's a bit harsh. So what you're saying, if I lose this game, I'm being sacked? I think that is a little bit harsh. I do think so. However, I do also think that it is now, reason being, because he's run out of time. He's had so much time now to turn around. But I'm actually encouraged. I'm actually starting to feel a little bit of encouragement. If you look at, we've played 5 games in this calendar year so far. We've lost 1. I don't care who the games are. People say, well, yeah, but they're playing. Yeah, forget that. These are the games we were, set up to play against, and that's the truth. And out of those 5, we've won 3 of them. Drawn 1, lost 1. And that was to Wolves away. I actually don't think things are looking as bad as they were in terms of 2022. 2023 is now shaping up, and you're starting to go, okay, got a little bit of form starting here. You've got a feeling things might be turning. But Newcastle is the test. That is going to be a real test to see really where we're sitting at this moment in time. If we can go to Newcastle and give them a game, get a result. I mean, imagine if we got 3 points, it'd be incredible. But if we can go there and get, say, a draw and play well, you'd really start thinking, wow, maybe Moyes is turning this around. Who knows? But it's going to be an interesting one. Come on, you irons.